Okay, so let's get started with adding a case. Click on this button or this button here, and it'll pull up a form. Now the form looks a little bit long. You're going to see a bunch of fields here, but the only ones that are required are the case number and case name. The other ones are all defaulted or don't need a value. So let's go with this one. Case 1 will be our case number, and we'll go ahead and say this is case 1. Description can be anything you like, just a short description for the case. So this is going to be a test case for showcasing the JuryBox software. Okay, and then down here we've got criminal or civil. Now this will just switch the labels, right? If I switch to civil, it'll be a plaintiff peremptory strike versus in criminal will be a prosecution peremptory strike. So just pick the one that makes the most sense for your situation, and then here you can also indicate the number of strikes for each side. You can pick the number of alternates. If this number goes above 0, you'll see 2 more fields pop up, and those are the prosecution peremptory strikes and the defense peremptory strikes. These strikes are counted separately than the strikes above, right? These are specific for the alternates. Then down here we have 2 fields regarding demographics. So the demographics track in categories, most people use them for demographics, which is why they have that label, but you can literally use them for any kind of categorical data. You can do it for questions that you want to ask everybody and you want to have similar answers for. You can use it to flag certain people. You can also use it to sort and filter later as well. So we're going to go ahead here and add a couple typical ones. I'm going to say occupation, and you can type anything that you want in these fields. These fields are completely dynamic, and they get populated as you fill out the options for each juror. So occupation, gender, and let's say favorite shoes. Right, you can literally pick anything you want here. Okay, and I'm going to say yes, I want to show them on the cards. You can change these at any time, but this just allows you to show the demographics on the juror cards in the JuryBox view. Now these 4 here at the bottom are to configure the JuryBox or the jury panel as you are picking a jury. So you select the maximum number of jurors that you're going to have on your panel or within your JuryBox, depending on how you do it. The max number of jurors per row, and this is currently maxed out at 10. We're hoping to expand that soon. We have a seat number starting position, and this just determines how the numbering works. Does it go from top left to bottom right? Does it go from top right to bottom left? So on and so forth. Does it have a seat number flow that is standard? Does it always go left to right? Or does it go left to right, right to left to right, right to left, like snaking? So I'll go ahead and pick these because they're pretty standard, and I'll go ahead and create this case. Okay, so once you've created the case, you land on this screen, which is our case details. You'll see there's the jury pool, the dismissed area, the jury box, and then up here this bar that gives you some case level actions and view switching. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and hover over a box. Let's say that we're talking to the juror in seat number 1. If I click on this plus button, it'll open up a juror form. I can enter in an ID or name. I can set up the demographics for this specific juror that I've indicated on the case, or I can add comments. So let's go ahead and say this is juror number 1, and his name is Bob. Now we're going to say the occupation. Obviously when you click on it, there are no options because you haven't added any yet. So let's just say, okay, well, if there aren't any, Bob, what do you do? And Bob says he is a construction worker. So we'll just say construction. And gender, male. Favorite shoes, he says that he really likes Nike. Okay, and then we have other comments, right? There might be other things that you need to keep track of. Does he have a large family? Does he have a police officer in the family? Have you ever served on a jury in the past, so on and so forth. Now I can hit save, and now we see that Bob's card here is in seat number 1. You've got the demographics in this kind of muted text. You have the seat number over here. You have his name. You have the notes, at least the first few lines of the notes here on the card. You also have this little menu up here, this little 3 dots. And this will allow you to set an intent with these first 3 options, or with the next 4, you could dismiss them for a specific reason. And then the last one is to move them into the alternates view, but we'll get to that later. So let's say that we're talking to Bob. We think that he's a good fit. Now we click on seat number 2 and start talking to whoever's here. So this will be juror number 2 in our situation, and this will be Mary. So just search whatever you find pertinent. Let's say we're talking to Mary, and it's like, well, we've got a few more questions, so we're going to ask her some questions. And we can keep going, right? We click on number 3, fill out information. Number 4, fill out information. And you can do this one by one if you're doing it on the fly. Another thing to note about the jury box area is that we can add a gap in there. And you'll see that the numbering didn't change, right? I got 1, 2, and then 3. There's just a gap between 2 and 3. So you can use this to create an aisle, right? In the area where it goes 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, 9, 10. And you can see this is the physical layout of the jury box. Now you only have 5 per row, obviously, because you put in that gap. But let's say that we wanted to change this layout a little bit. So instead of being 6 jurors per row, we're going to say 7, so that we could make 3 on each side, right? So we're going to hit save, and then we're going to say, okay, we're going to put the gap here now, and now we've got 3 on each side. You can always remove the gaps like I showed earlier by clicking on the remove gap button. And then there's also up here a multiple juror edit. So this is useful when you're asking panel questions, right, of a lot of people. Let's say that we ask everyone that's seated, how many of you have been to Disneyland, right? So we click on multiple juror edit, and it turns these people into checkboxes. Obviously people who aren't seated, it won't show anything yet, but we can click on Bob because he raised his hand, and Mary because she raised her hand too. So they've both been to Disneyland. We confirm the selection, and now when I click on that, it opens up this form that'll allow me to edit the comments or the demographics for both of them at the same time. Any comments that you put into this comments field will be appended to their comments, and any demographic that you change will be changed for both of them. The other ones will be ignored. Okay, so this comment is, been to Disneyland. So I could just hit save here, but before I do that, I'm going to highlight one other feature. So there's something that we call the emoji index. So this just allows us to flag and keep track of specific notes using emoji. So any emoji that you place in these comments will automatically be indexed and show up in a special place on the cards and near the comments area. So down here you can see the emoji keyboard hotkeys. So this on the Mac is Command Control Space. On Windows it'd be something like Windows period. And then when you do that, a little emoji keyboard will pop up. So I'm going to use this castle, because that reminds me of Disneyland. It doesn't matter what you use, this is all up to you. You can create your own system. And I'm going to hit save. And you can see now that these cards each have this little castle in the corner. You can see it here on the notes too, but you can see it on the corner. And the important thing about this is, one, it's easy to see that this person has a castle on there, right? Even if there were more notes, let's say she had more notes, Mary had more notes here. Anyway, so now you can see on this card that you can't actually see the castle in the notes, but you can see it on the index. So if I click here and it opens up this card and takes me straight to where this note was taken. I've been to Disneyland with the castle, and it highlights it for me. So it makes it easy to keep track of specific things that you need Okay, so to speed things up, I'm going to use another feature, and this will showcase for everyone just how to do this anyway. I'm going to show you how to import jurors. So I click on this button up here that says Upload CSV, and I can choose the file that I need. And I'll go ahead and say this file. This file has about 50 random jurors with some information in it. So I'm going to click on that, hit open, and what it does is it analyzes the CSV file. So you can see here it's giving me a preview of a few of the columns and the data in those columns in the spreadsheet. And then down here it's asking me to map each one of those columns to a field in JuryBox. And now for this one, I'm going to slow down a little bit. With race, this one we don't have an existing demographic. You can see up here with age, I did the same thing. So instead of selecting a demographic that already exists, you can say I'm going to add a new one. And it'll use this column name as the label for that demographic. I am also going to ignore this seat. I could select the seat number here, but I'm going to ignore that so we can work with the data a little bit differently. So I'm going to go ahead and say submit, and it will process the file and place them into the jury pool area since they didn't have seat numbers indicated. So if I scroll down, now we'll see we also have all these people in the jury pool area. You can modify jurors, you can move them into the dismissed area, you can move them up into the jury box, you can delete them. Basically, you can do everything that you would have done up here, but just with this table view down here. So these are people who are ready to go into the panel, and you can keep hundreds of records in here if you'd like. We have 50 for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them into the jury box. So there's some quick actions up here in the top right corner of the jury box area. And one of them, furthest to the right, is the fill from jury pool. And what it'll do is it will take the jurors in the order that they're in currently and put them into the box. So I am going to sort them by their ID or name. And it looks like they're already that way anyway. And then I'm going to pull them into the jury pool. And it's just going to fill up all the seats. So you can see now we've got 18 people seated, and we have one with a thumbs up. Let's fill a couple other statuses out so we can see just how those look. And we're going to go ahead also and show again the multiple juror edit real quick so you can see how it looks with a bunch of people. So I'm going to click up here, and you can see they're all checkboxes again, so you can ask a question. It's like, how many of you oppose the death penalty in any situation, right? So let's say these people raised their hands. We can confirm the selection. Now we're editing all 7 of them. And here we'll put a note to help us remember that. So let's say oppose the death penalty, right? And then we're going to add an emoji here. I'm going to pick a chair. It's easy for me to remember. Hit save. And we can see here all the people that raised their hand now have a little chair on their card. And we've also got some more notes. Great. So let's go ahead and start dismissing people, right? We're going to keep track up here of how many people have been dismissed. And let's say we're talking to Bob, we keep him. Mary, great, we're going to keep her. Marlo, defense strikes Marlo. And let's say Jefferson, prosecution strikes Jefferson. Cordelli gets dismissed for cause. You can see as I'm moving them from here, I could move them into another seat if I wanted to, but if I drag them into the dismissed area, I have 4 boxes that I can place them into, each one just for the different reason why they're dismissed. And you can see when I do drop them, they land in the dismissed area with a label. It says D for defense, C for cause, P for prosecution, again D for defense. You can also see there's this little icon here, it says restore juror. And that's if you accidentally dismiss somebody and you need to move them back. You can click here and it'll move them into the lowest available seat. And if you needed them to be somewhere else, you can move them again to a different seat. We also have seats open now. So if you're going to be filling those seats in, there are several ways that people do this in the courtroom. One of which is to simply select the next person and have them go into the seat. So let's say we need someone for seat number 3. I'm going to say, okay, Keely Garris is the next one in line. I could select her, move her right into the jury box. Another thing, though, we could be searching for someone who's not readily available, right? Like maybe they call them out. We're going to look for someone who has the ID of 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 5. And you see, all right, there's Mary Beth Council. We moved jury box, and she goes into the available seat. Now, another approach, I left one seat open so we can illustrate this, is that they'll have everyone slide over and then fill the empty seat at the end. So if that's the case, it would be really tedious to one by one click on these people and move them into the appropriate seats. So there's another action up here called slide jurors over to fill empty seats. And it will automatically do that for you quickly and efficiently and leave that open seat for you. And then you select your next juror and they go into that space. Now another piece that I would like to illustrate for you is the data view. So the data view will allow us to see a lot of this information in a different way. Right now we're seeing it as jury box, dismissed, and jury pool, but there's also the table view. When you open that, it will show you a search bar, it will show you a table with all of the demographics broken out, and it will give you all the other information like when the juror was created or updated. You can edit them by clicking here. You can also sort. So any of these columns are sortable. So let's say we're going to sort by occupation. You can see we've got quite a few different occupations in here. I could also sort again by gender. Now, if you need to clear the selection, over here there's a little button that pops up if you've actually selected some sorting, and you can clear it and you can go ahead and sort it by something else. Now if you also just need to clear one, you can toggle it a few times, and one of the options would be to have it not sort by that column anymore. The search functionality also highlights any matches, so let's go ahead and see if we can find anything that has to do with the death penalty. Right, so as I type, it actually opens up the notes to the part where it has that comment and highlights the surrounding lines if there are any. And we can easily go ahead and look at Marlo Sherry and see those notes. We can also look at anyone else who has that mentioned in their notes and or demographics. So let's say we wanted to look for something like health nurse. There we go, we've got health nurse there. We can also dismiss them directly from here. So let's say if we were to dismiss Bob, I can click on this X and say, all right, I'm gonna get rid of him for cause. And you can see he gets a little cause tag in this dismissed column. And you can see why each person was dismissed. You can also sort by it if you need to. You can sort by seat number if that's helpful. You can sort by their status. And this view is completely separate from the view over here with the jury box. The data is the same, but doing a sorting here is not going to affect anything over here. Now we have an empty seat again for Bob. I'm going to go ahead and actually dismiss quite a few of these people, and we're going to take a look at the demographics analytics. So each of these people has quite a few demographics on them. Let's actually keep track of our counts up here. You can see we got 6 remaining for prosecution and 5 for defense. I'm going to pull these down. Okay, and fill it up. Okay, so now we've got a full jury box. We've got all the people dismissed. And up here there's a button that's called the Demographics Analytics. And what this does is it takes each one of those demographics and it creates a chart showing the comparison between the juror population and the peremptory strikes for the defense and the prosecution. Now this first one at the top, the occupation, is a little too diverse. It doesn't give you enough insight. But if you look at some of the ones that have fewer options, you'll see, for example, the female population is 59% of the entire juror population. And you can see that the defense peremptory challenges and the prosecution peremptory challenges are actually pretty close to that number. So it doesn't seem like they're biased based on gender. You can also look here at the age versus population. This is another demographic that we have. You can see that the prosecution is dismissing at a much higher rate than the population for that age group. So, and the defense is not dismissing any from that age group. So maybe there's a bias in that section as well. And again, we can see down here the race versus population. It looks like some of these might have some biases in them. You can include the jury pool in these populations because by default this green bar represents the people who are in the jury box and those who've been dismissed. If you want to include the jury pool, you have to check this box and it'll change obviously based on that set of data. There are two more things I'm going to show you. The first one is the alternates view. So right now we have these 10 strikes for the jurors in the jury box, but we also need to seat our alternates. If we toggle this switch, it changes the view. And now we see we just have 2 people to seat. And I can use people from the jury pool and place them here in the alternates area. So let's say we put them in their seats for alternates. And we ask them questions. One gets dismissed by the prosecution peremptory, and you can see that the prosecution peremptory strikes have gone to 0 remaining. And let's say this other one moves to seat 1, and we pull in Catherine Connors, and defense strikes her, and we pull in Shalonda Tellez, and now no one else has any strikes, so unless it's for cause or hardship, she's going to be the alternate. And this just allows you to keep track of these counts separately and easily switch between those views and see who's an alternate and who's in the jury box. The last part I'm going to show you is the download PDF of case. Now this, all it does is create a simple PDF that will show you all of your information from this case. It gives you the case name, the case number, the case description, obviously, and then it has any notes that you may have taken in the case notes area. And it has the jury box, so it shows all the people who are seated, what seat number they're in, any of the demographics associated with that juror, and any notes as well. So you can see here, it also indicates when the notes for a specific juror has ended. So you can easily differentiate between the two. The only thing that is limited right now here is that the emoji don't show up exactly how they are supposed to. It's a bug that we're working on, just a heads up there. But this will allow you to print it off for your case files if you need to, or if you just wanted to work with paper at some point during jury selection, you could print this off and use the papers. So that's the gist of using JuryBox. I hope that you enjoyed this training and that I can hear from you soon with any feedback or ideas on how to improve it. And when you're ready to subscribe, you can just click here on the subscribe button and you can continue to use JuryBox.